Hi guys, my name is Uche Orakwe Nkwanta and I am the founder of Parenting Specials. On today's topic, we are going to be talking about learning styles. That means the style in which a child should assimilate or learn a particular thing or learn in general. Now, what do you understand by the term learning styles? Learning styles just tells you the process in which a child assimilates whatever they are taught, how it goes through their brain, and how they understand that particular thing they're being taught. These learning styles depends on three main factors, which is the emotional factor, the cognitive factor, and the environmental factor. Now, the emotional factor depends on the state of the child. What is going on within the child that is stopping the child from learning? Secondly, the cognitive factor. This has to do with the processing of whatever is learned. How does it go through the brain? How does the child process that particular thing? Children are different. Some children pick up some definitions immediately, while some children actually take longer to process certain things. It doesn't mean they are dull, or it doesn't mean they won't understand. It just depends on the process in which the brain takes to assimilate that particular topic. The third factor, which is the environmental factor, has to do with the environment in which a child is placed. Is the place too stuffy? Is it too cold? How is the environment in general? How are the teachers teaching that particular child? Now, these are the three main factors when it comes to learning styles. Going down to the learning styles, we have a model known as the VARK model, which is VARK. VAC Model is a model that tells you the different kinds of learners or the different ways in which different children should be taught. Let's start with the V. The V stands for a visual learner. This learner has to actually see what they are working with before they can understand it. And this seeing, it doesn't mean that he just sees it and then he understands. It has to be in form of a chart or a graph or a pie. When these children have these things placed in form of a chart, it's easier for them to assimilate. My son is a visual learner. I have to break things down for him in form of a chart. Example, when I'm teaching different definitions, let's use an adjective. An adjective is a word that describes a noun. Now I have to put the main points into boxes for him to pick it up. Adjective, word, describes, noun. And that's how he's been able to learn various definitions. And he understands it not just as a definition. He's able to pick out what an adjective is in a sentence. Let's move on to the next one, which is an auditory learner. An auditory learner depends on communication, physical communications, or talking. You have to talk. This may be in form of talks, discussions, seminar. It's just a way for them to learn. You have to speak out those particular things for them to understand. Most of us are actually auditory learners, and not all children has to be static. You don't have to stay in a particular model. There's some people that work perfectly in the 4 models. Now, an auditory learner is one that you speak to and that child picks it up. You just define something to them and they're able to understand what you mean. The third is the read and write learner. That is a learner that has to read something and actually write it down. They learn by reading, by taking notes. You just have to, when you finish teaching, you have to make them to read what you're talking about for them to actually understand what they are working with. I am actually a read and write learner. Growing up, whenever I had an exam coming up, I had to read whatever I was reading and take down points or take down notes for it to assimilate in my head. People always wondered why I was taking down notes, like, what are you going to use those notes for when you already have a note? I said, no, I have to take this thing through this process for me as a person to understand what I'm working with. Now let's go to the last but not the least, which is the K. The K stands for a kinetic learner. These are learners that have to actually go through the process with you. When teaching them, you may read or write or put it in chart form, but these particular learners have to be part of the process. My daughter is a kinetic learner. I have to take her through that process. For example, when I was teaching her living and non-living things, we actually had to bring those things physically. I even sent her to bring those things herself so that she can understand. She's part of the process. Now that definition sticks in her head because she knows that, oh, I was part of this process. I know I brought something that was living, which is like an ant or a roach or a lizard. We can tell that those things are actually living. And then she can bring an object to me and say, oh, this doesn't move, because she's actually part of the process. Now, these learning styles, children can operate, there are children who can operate the 4 parts of those learning styles. There are some who depend on 1, there are some who depend on 2. I can actually read and write and actually understand from auditory. I can interchange or interswitch different kinds of models, but not all children can do so. So you have to, as a parent, you have to actually understand, what child am I dealing with? What kind of model does my child rely on? And then use that particular child to teach them whatever you want to teach them. Now, these are the models in which you can use to train your child, and I hope that you actually learned something. Now, don't forget to like, to subscribe, and share. Thank you.